I got a question in the back. I guess I'll take it.
Speaking to that, I mean, the counter argument would be if they would get to a point for your house, you have a file cabinet full of papers that are incriminating, you can't invoke the Fifth Amendment on something you've written down. It's only against what you speak, correct?
I don't know. That's an interesting. Yeah, I mean, you can't. If they have a warrant to search your file cabinet, they have access to your file cabinet. You can't say, "I'm not going to let you read it because I'm pleading the Fifth." Right? They can look at it if they have a warrant. But the question is, what if there's a combination lock on the file cabinet and they need the combination from you? They could break it, right? But if they can't break it, let's say it's like it's the ultimate safe and there's no way in. All right. Can they force you to tell them what the password is? It's an interesting question. It hasn't been fully litigated. I think that they can't, but I don't know as much about the law as Oren care, so it's controversial.
The thing I think is that they don't have a warrant for your laptop.
No, in this case, they don't have a warrant for your laptop. That's true, but it's also a different context where they decided that the search is reasonable in spite of the fact that they don't have a warrant because you're at the border.
The problem with border law is when you're coming into the country, you're applying entrance back into the country. And so you're kind of in a no man's land. You might be physically in the country, but you're applying for admission. And until customs grants you admission into the country, you don't have a lot of the rights that you normally have. Like, we don't have to have a warrant. We don't, I'm saying we because I'm a customs officer.
Now you're in the hot seat.
I'm mostly here to heckle you.
Okay.
So you say, well, I think that you don't have that right. That's the problem.
Well,
I'm not going to like beat you down and like stuff on it. You do have obvious rights, but there are a lot of rights that people don't.
That's an interesting question too, and I don't know. Like everything that I've read, the argument has been that you do have a Fourth Amendment right. It's just that all searches are reasonable, and so as opposed to saying that you don't have a Fourth Amendment right. So I'm interested in the question that you've just raised, which is, do you have a Fifth Amendment right? Maybe there are some amendments that don't apply and some that do.
You're just in a weird.
You're in a weird nether zone, and exactly what the rules are, is interesting. Oh, so there's a bunch of questions, and I kind of want to go on with the presentation. And I'm going to leave time to ask questions at the end. Is that cool? All right. So agents could detain you if you refuse to reveal your password. They could seize your laptop. They could deny you entry in the United States, theoretically. Tammy probably knows more about that than anyone else who's commented on this so far. What I've read is that they've said technically they could deny you entry in the U.S., but it's apparently very difficult to do that if you're a U.S. citizen, and no one's really sure what the rules are.
If you're a U.S. citizen, you can't deny you entry into your own country.
Yeah.
If you're a visiting alien, or if you're an immigrant, they can revoke your status. But if you're a citizen, we can't deny you entry into your own country.
But they can take your laptop.
Oh yeah, they can totally take your laptop.
So there's this thing called TrueCrypt, and a bunch of people in the scene have been like, dude, run TrueCrypt. And TrueCrypt is this program that allows you to have a hidden drive on your computer. And you can also have a hidden operating system in their new release. I don't advise you to use this as a way of fooling the customs service. First of all, if you're running TrueCrypt, they have this thing called travel mode, right? Suspiciously named, which tries to make the thing totally invisible. The software itself is not visible on your computer. But the fact is that there's still a key in the registry. And the customs agents are not stupid, especially the ones doing computer analysis. They know how to do computer analysis. That's their job. They may know to check for this registry key, and they'll find your TrueCrypt. If you're running the dual OS, like hidden operating system TrueCrypt mode, then there's a bootloader that is used to make that work, and they could detect the bootloader. If I was them, I would be looking for this stuff. So then you're in a difficult position. You can deny that there's a hidden OS, and they can detain you, hoping you'll fess up, and that's not fun. And it's possible that if you're super slick and you use some really sophisticated steganography and they're not too interested in you, that you could, have some data on your laptop that they don't see and you could slide by. But it's not something that I would advise that you try to do. And it's probably more difficult than you think. So there's this security researcher, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because I can't. What? There you go. So go in. So he says, and I don't think this is very practical, but it's an interesting thought process because it helps you think about this policy. You can wipe your laptop, encrypt your data, and put it on a file server, or mail an encrypted DVD to the destination in a letter envelope, which they won't open. Then travel to your destination, download the data at the destination, decrypt it and use it, and then re-encrypt it and re-upload it to the internet or remail it, and then wipe your laptop again and travel again. And so that's not very practical. However, it goes to show you that in some respects, basically what's happened here is not a situation where someone sat down and they said, we need to start looking at information coming into the United States. How are we going to do that? Well, we need to look at it on this place, this place, this place. And one of those places was laptops coming in on the border. That's not what happened. What happened is that Customs is used to searching stuff at the border, and people started bringing laptops, and so they started searching the laptops along with everything else. And it doesn't necessarily logically fit into like a holistic perspective about how you'd go about creating an information bubble around the United States. And this example kind of demonstrates that. So it's a useful thought process. So in my view, I don't think you should try to fool the customs agents, nor do I think you should lie to them. I think you should advocate that the policies change if you don't agree with the policies. This is America. And I have been advocating that these policies change for quite some time and very vocally. I was not selected for secondary screening. I came back into the country on Monday from Asia. They're not targeting me. This is America, and we have a right to speak our mind. And they're willing to have an honest debate about this, and they're trying to be open about it. DHS has published a number of blog entries on their blogs about it, where you can comment. They want to have a dialogue. So let's have a dialogue, and let's figure out what we think, and let's express our views, and let's get the policy right. And I don't think we should have to be afraid to fly overseas with our laptops. And I'll get really the last slide really talks about the nature of privacy. And so I'll explain that observation at the end. And again, these slides are from a HackerCon where I gave this talk, and there are a lot of people in the hacker scene who are like, dude, let's make tools that protect people from searches, and I don't really think that's a great idea. I don't like situations where you create this policy that forces everyone to act like they're a criminal and creates these tools that enable you to cover your tracks, because most people are not criminals. And those tools end up getting used by criminals. And so the problem is that you end up enabling people to hide. So a good example is Gnutella, right? People are using Gnutella to exchange MP3 files because we don't have a good way of dealing with intellectual property and music, and it never got sorted out right. And so you ended up with Napster before you had iTunes. And so as a result, you had this really bad thing where you developed this culture of people downloading music off the internet without paying for it. And and that still persists today. And they have these tools that are designed so they can do it without getting in trouble. And it gets used by people who are interested in trading child pornography. And nobody who's involved with Gnutella wants to enable that, but they do. And so it's a good idea to, instead of building these infrastructures that allow us to get away with crime, that we actually try to change the law so that it's reasonable instead, so that we don't end up enabling people to do bad things. And so that's my view of TrueCrypt and some of these other tools. That's not the right answer. So I think that a lot of you use the internet probably, and you probably debate people on the internet, and so I'm going to arm you, I hope, with some arguments about this issue, and those arguments are useful for debating people on the internet. And debating people on the internet is actually important because it helps develop people's perception of an issue and what they think the right answer should be. The internet is how we figure things out today. So, I think that when the Fourth Amendment says no unreasonable searches, it means that you have to have a reason to search something. That seems pretty logical to me. It's an arguable point, but it seems pretty logical to me. A lot of people who advocate these searches say that there's this ancient right of the sovereign to search people at the border without reasonable suspicion. I don't think that that's true. The first case precedent that refers to unreasonable or refers to reasonable suspicion is from 1985, and the original Congress in 1789 said that they must have reason to suspect the thing that they're searching contains contraband. And so I do not buy the idea that there's this ancient right to search randomly. And it may be the case, but it hasn't been proven. Furthermore, the Ninth Circuit said that they implied an intrusiveness analysis up until this case in 2004 with the gas tank. So this is new law. This is not old law, and there's still a chance that it might to discuss it. Random searches are not efficient. Customs has limited resources, and those resources should be targeted at people who are in some way suspicious. There is a terrorist that they found at the border. They found a guy with a laptop, and he had videos of like martyrdom videos and instructions about how to build IEDs. But that guy was flagged using this system called ATS, which is this traveler profiling system. It's been controversial itself, but in any event, he wasn't like randomly selected. He was found because he fit the profile of a terrorist. The other thing is computers are not just like luggage. Luggage contains nothing by default, and you add only what you want to bring on the trip, whereas computers by default contain everything that you have. And if you want to remove something, you have to specifically go in and remove it. And that's a big difference. There are little sort of edge cases that might have been like that or equivalent to that in the past, but never before have people been bringing so much of their personal information with them all the time. That is totally new as of 5 years ago. And it's really a new situation, and it has to be thought of in a new light. And rationalizations from the drug war era are not necessarily directly applicable to it. John Perry Barlow famously said 15 years ago that you can have my encryption algorithm when you pry my cold dead fingers from its private key. And so, I mean, that's an attitude that people are going to have. And it's inevitable that Customs is going to ask someone for their password, and they're going to say no. Someone is going to be the Rosa Parks on this thing. And unlike Rosa Parks, who was able to carefully select the place at which she was arrested and had lawyers ready to go, the person who ends up being this guy will not have lawyers ready to go. And the lawyers who, may be interested in the subject for one reason or another might not be willing to help him. So I would not advise being this person if you happen to get searched. But eventually it's going to happen. Somebody is going to refuse to turn over their keys, and it's going to turn into an issue. And this goes back to Sheboygan's idea. People smuggle information over the internet. Okay, they don't smuggle it in on laptops. It's just sort of incidental that someone might have illegal information on their laptop. If they were really seriously interested in bringing bad stuff into the country, they'd be doing it online. And the internet links are protected by FISA. You have to have a warrant to search them. It's not even a question of reasonable suspicion. It's a question of probable cause. The latest update to FISA, which was passed just a few months ago, requires a warrant even when you're overseas if you're a U.S. citizen and they want to monitor your communications on the internet. So we have this totally different standard over here, and if it's okay for that standard to be that way over here, then it must be okay for it to be that way over here. Right now we have a very serious contradiction. And so, if you care about this issue, even if you totally disagree with me, you think I'm an asshole, and you think that these searches should totally be legal, one way or the other, you have a right to express your opinion to your congressperson, and you should. And don't be a jerk, even if they're jerks, because no one likes jerks. If you're writing members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I would thank them for holding a hearing on the subject, if this is something you care about, and tell them that Customs, in my view, Customs should not be allowed to perform searches of laptops or electronics without reasonable suspicion. I don't think reasonable suspicion is a very high bar for them to meet. I don't think it will tie their hands, and I think it will prevent random searches with quotas, and it will prevent searches of everyone. So I think that's important. And also ask Customs to perform a privacy impact assessment. Like no one knows exactly how many people are being searched and what the impact of this is. So we need more information in order to make the right choices. There's this Hands Off My Laptop campaign that I mentioned before, and you can still go to this website and you can still register, and it sends message to DHS and it tells them that you want a privacy impact study and it's worth doing. This is my last slide, and then I'll open up for questions. There's this question that always comes up in this context, and it's like, why are you worried about this? Like, if you're not doing anything wrong, then you have nothing to hide. So, what is the issue with that? And this is a difficult. And when I originally presented this at Hope, someone actually argued with me about it. So I'll present those arguments first. Basically, the bottom line is that we're human, and our laws, first of all, are not necessarily perfect. And that was one of the arguments made at Hope. Sometimes we have bad laws. Sometimes we have laws that are passed on the basis of sensationalism. But people who really believe about this "you've got nothing to hide" argument, they don't buy into the idea that laws are questionable, or if they do, they think the right way to deal with that is through the legislature. Sometimes the police are not good guys. Usually they are, but sometimes they're crooked. And so, again, we're human, and so that's got to factor into it. But again, the people who make this "you've got nothing to hide" argument usually don't buy into the idea that the police could be corrupt, or if they do, they think that internal affairs or some other way of dealing with it is the right way to deal with it. And so the real question is that in a society where you've got perfect laws and you've got perfect police, why should you be concerned about violations of your privacy if you're not a criminal?